Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our human game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are taking a look at a blitz game. This is Wadsy-27 against Biranidun, which is actually two young English international masters. Matthew Wadsworth against Brandon Clarke, and this was played at the ECF 24-hour chess marathon for Ukraine. Brandon had an absolute belter of a tournament, came in second to the to the machine, Keith Arkle. But this was one of the games that caught my attention just when I was spectating, and yeah, it's really great, really great, and just sort of shows that that human players can play quite incredibly at fast time controls. Although seeing Magnus Carlsen win game after game against super GMs at in the Blitz Championship in Poland recently, you sort of wondered whether Magnus was actually the mystery engine that's been interesting us so much. But even the lesser gods can produce some great games. So this was really about a fantastic positional idea in the English. So let's just see how that went. So it was c4 knight f6, g3 g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, knight c3 castles, knight f3, d6, castles, e5, d3, knight c6. Pretty classical standard position in the English. And Brandon played a very natural idea. Doesn't seem to have been played that much in actual fact, but yeah, incredibly natural. So after rook b1, typical idea for white, just looking to play b4 to b5. a5, a3, throw that one in so that after b4 you can take, and then black has the a file, maybe temporarily, but black does have it. And then knight d4. So this idea, very typical for black, just sort of stepping out of the prospective attack from white, b4, b5. You can swap off a pair of knights, just free black's position a little bit, and you get the move like c6, for example, just to block the long diagonal, and maybe even get in d5 after. So bishop g5 was played, very typical idea again for white. You're often going to swap this bishop for the knight, and that's going to give white some extra control of the light squares. Of course, pawn on c4, d3, plus the bishop on g2 here. White's really pursuing a light square strategy in the centre. And then Brandon played knight takes f3 check, bishop f3, and then a move that was a novelty, bishop h3. And when it was played, the idea that Matthew played in the game popped into my head as well. And, I sort of thought, would that be interesting? And, well, it was great. He didn't have to wait too long because Matthew did it. He played bishop b7, bishop f1, and didn't take on a8 now. For example, if you go bishop a8, then bishop e2, followed by queen a8 is played. It's probably a slight advantage to white still. But instead, Matthew played the move queen f1, just sacrificing the exchange. And rook b8 was played, and we're going to have a look at this position together with the engines. I was sort of, looking at this, I sort of thought this must surely have occurred before, but I haven't been able to think of any example, any English game that I've seen before with this sort of sacrifice. And so yeah, if you can think of one, if you know one, then do let me know. I'd be really interested. But somehow, yeah, my classical knowledge is just too short in this position. Now, the interesting thing about this position was to see how the engines played it, because already on the first move they didn't like the move queen takes f1. They wanted to play the move king takes f1. Yeah, they had a number of queries about some of the moves that followed. Maybe just show a few moves of what happened, and then we'll just get a little idea here. So after rook b8, Matthew played the move queen g2, just defending the bishop on b7. And here the engines were very keen to play this move c5. And yeah, this is a very important point, I think. The key idea is that when you play this move c5, suddenly black's queen side is a lot freer, first of all. A lot more squares, a lot more freedom. And also it means that white's b4 is a lot more difficult to achieve, or rather, even if you achieve it, you're just going to be swapping off lots of pawns. What white really wants to get is actually a grip on the queen side. Get this bishop onto c6 and play the move b4, and after ab, play the pawn into b5, and then we've got this total grip of the light squares here. Total grip of the center first of all, and well, with the bishop controlling a8, it means that the a file is white's. So that's really what white is looking for. Total grip on the queenside light squares there. Open up the a file by playing b4. Entrench that light squared bishop on the c6 square. Invade along the a file. That's the whole strategy basically. And well, queen g2 is not a good move order because it gives black the opportunity to play this move c5 and just free the queen side, and also clamp down a little bit on the b4 pawn. And well, if you play bishop c6 here, well, black's got this move rook b6, and what you can see is that black's kind of fighting for the light squares here. So for example, if you now go queen g2, we go h6, and yeah, how is white going to do this? If you go bishop takes f6, which is you know, kind of the idea of bishop g5 there, then we can just take, and after b4 takes, black can play this move rook a6. And yeah, we're getting hold of the a file, b5 rook a5, and well, the black pieces aren't at all restricted by well, they're not, they are a little bit restricted, but they're not really as much restricted by this bishop on c6, because this rook on a5 has got free, and yeah, you know, white's going to have to fight somehow for control of the a file. If you go to back to bishop e3, which was kind of the move that I was more thinking of, fond of my two bishops, then black can play this move rook b3, queen f1, queen b8. And well, what you can see is that the black pieces are kind of fighting here for the b file. They've got this nice soft square on b3. The rook and queen now are attacking the pawn on b2, and well, the engine's Stockfish here found a very nice way of playing. So e4, d takes c4, knight g4. So we're opening up lots of play here against the queen side here. Bishop a4, and now a very nice little finish here. Bishop b3, queen b3, bc. Yeah, if you were to go queen c3, I guess you'd just take and then take here. When yeah, white's got a nice set of pawns there, really, hasn't he? So b takes c3, queen c4. f3 takes, queen a2, and it's not great for black, but black's actually surviving here. You're attacking the rook on b1, pawn on a3 is hanging, so yeah, Stockfish you know, sort of easily made a draw against Leela from that. So I think what you're getting the feeling of there is that taking with the queen and putting it over on g2, we're losing some grip on the queen side light squares, and we're giving some freedom to black's queen's rook. So what the engines really wanted here was to play the move king takes f1, with the idea that this white queen now can come over to a4 and really get stuck into the queenside light squares. And well, we've got a couple of ideas here. Rook b8, not the engine's favourite. We go bishop c6 here. Queen c8, we just take and go b4. This was Stockfish's plan. It's just going directly for it, really. Takes, h5, e3, h4, queen f3. Just getting into the light squares there, bishop d8 and then b5. And yeah, all that Stockfish is aiming for is to go knight d5, rook a1, rook a7. And this is really, really difficult for black. And Leela was not managing to hold these positions. For example, here, queen g4, rook d1, a little bit of a mysterious move there. Then it went over to a1. f5, rook a7, f4, g takes f4, takes, and knight d5 and f3, and well, black's just completely paralyzed here. And yeah, I mean, there's even ideas like just playing bishop e8 just to chase this rook away from f7 and then get the c7 pawn as well. Lots of ideas like that. So Leela tried to sacrifice the pawn, but actually this turned out to be just still really, really good for white. You know, just 2 pawns for the exchange, pass pawn, this rook kind of dominated, and this pawn ready to roll if black's pieces ever leave control of b6. And yeah, Stockfish managed to win quite comfortably, really. So you can see there that the power of taking with a king on f1, just keeping the queen for the queenside light squares and making sure that this bishop on c6 is rock solid. The best move the engines wanted to play was rook a7, but then bishop c6, and yeah, this is kind of nasty really, because white's threat actually is just to go bishop e3. So for example, if you go h6 in this position, I go bishop e3, and if you go rook a6, I go bishop b7, just picking up the exchange, and I'm just going to be a pawn up. So there's some big danger there. So queen c8 played just to cover that b7 square. King g2 from white. Feels odd, doesn't it? I mean, white's going king f1 to g2, you know, just wasting time like that. But yeah, having the queen available for the queenside squares, you know, really makes it worthwhile. And again, black's got to be really careful here. If you go h6, this was my suggestion, then we go bishop e3, rook a6, queen a4. And the amazing thing here, black chases away a little bit, white goes f3, just to make sure you get the bishop back in. And then the amazing thing is that this move is a really strong threat. Queen b5, just threatening bishop b7. And, well, black's just forced to give up the exchange simply again. So bishop h6, bishop f2, rook a8, bishop a8, and white's just a pawn up with a completely winning position. This was Leela against Stockfish. So you can tell how much power that queen on a4 is bringing to white's queenside counterplay. So well, the engines were actually playing a4, just this move just to sacrifice the pawn and stop this white queen from getting into a4, and yeah, just free a bit more room for the black rook there. Yeah, I mean, there were many good moves here. Stockfish was playing f3, rook a6, bishop a4, and just saying, okay, I've got two pawns for the exchange. I've got the two bishops as well. That's going to be winning, and that certainly was. Leela was going for a very nice plan here, which was knight d5. Takes and takes, just hammering in, entrenching, that was the word I used in the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, entrenching that bishop on c6, and then playing b4 here. And well, yeah, again, you know, black's very wary of taking like this, because we got moves like bishop b7. This rook on a6 is really uncomfortable. But after b4, f4, bishop d2, g5, b5, rook a7, rook b4, Leela was just in its element really. I mean, you're attacking this one. This rook's also stopping any big attack from coming in here. You've just got this move f3, and then eventually white's just going to break through on the king side there, on the queen side rather. So yeah, Leela again won some great games. Stockfish just sacking everything to try and get something moving there. But yeah, two very different ways of playing. But again, I think, you know, the feeling that you're getting is just complete control. But yeah, the queen's position on a4 there, simply quite key for that. I'd be surprised if that had ever happened in a human game, because yeah, taking with a king on f1 is not intuitive at all. So well, after queen f1, rook b8, queen g2. Brandon played h6 in this position, and well, takes was played, bishop takes f6. Yeah, the engines preferred queen f6, and after b4 they wanted to play e4, just, you know, break things up somehow. You know, knight takes e4, we go queen e7 here, so we're threatening rook b7. After bishop d5, king h7, and well, black's ready to play f5 and f4, and, you know, stuff is hanging somehow. You know, maybe you'll get in c6 some stage. You just see somehow how the engines, that's Stockfish in particular here, have just managed to, you know, to really just break it all up. Leela after knight e4 was looking at playing queen e5, but again with similar things. Bishop d5, c6, just to chase the bishop away from d5 so you can play f5, and then play queen e2. Again, you see how great the engines are there at breaking things up and causing chaos here. You know, very, very sharp play, and well, here takes rook b1, and yeah, Leela managed to hold this somehow. Yeah, not very comfortable, because you know, white's quite well placed, but yeah, somehow, yeah, active pieces for black, so, you know, holdable somehow for an engine at least. But I think you get the general idea, you know, that there the engines were really all about disrupting stuff. Now, of course, you know, Brandon playing a 5-minute game, and I think this one was played early in the morning, so I think Brandon had already been going for about 18 hours. So, you know, I think he's going to be forgiven for this. I think Matthew Wadsworth was somewhat fresher. I think he'd had a real night's sleep, and he was starting again fresh in the morning there. So bishop takes f6, b4, takes. And after bishop g7, bishop c6, wow, we see that Matthew's, really getting his structure in there, and then b5 here. And, well, I mean, basically, all that remains now is knight d5, and then a little rook a1 to a7, and, well, it'll all be complete. Brandon played e4, which is very natural, just uncovering the attack of the bishop on the knight on c3. Then we get knight d5, takes and takes. Some positions, Leela was looking at playing e3, and then just taking this pawn after, but I did kind of prefer playing e takes d3 here. And I mean, the idea simply is that, well, we've got another open file now. We don't, the bishop's covering a1, which is slightly irritating, but now we've got e1 to e7, which, is maybe even better. The bishop's not only covering a8, it's covering is covering e8 as well. So king h7 was played, rook e1, bishop f6, and Matthew played h4 here. H5. Now, what I was kind of expecting actually was to play the move rook e6, get the queen across to e2, and well, stuff like knight f4, and who knows, bishop e8 at some stage maybe. I just thought this was going to be completely killing. Actually, what Matthew did was very strong as well. King g7 happened, and then knight f4, queen c8, knight e6 check, takes, and I mean, Matthew was completely winning there. Well, obviously, this being a blitz game, and it all got a bit wild and hairy. I think Brandon was probably just equal, but then somehow in some enormous opposite colour bishop ending, Matthew managed to win all the same. Not so important really for this theme, but this was a very, very impressive positional idea. Really liked it from Matthew, just sacrificing the exchange in the English. And I mean, actually, it looks like, for the engines, as long as you play it accurately here, keep the queen in contact with the light squares, and just aim for this idea, basically keep the c-pawn on c7, which somehow seems to cut the black position in half, to separate the queen side from the king side, and then just get in b4, b5 with the open a file after ab, get the dark square bishop off, entrench yourself on the light squares, invade on the a file. I mean, it's a very, in a way, it's quite a simple thematic way of playing, but it just looks completely irresistible really for white there. So certainly if you have seen that theme in classic games, then do let me know, because I'd be very, very interested to know that. There we are. Hope you enjoyed that one. If you liked it, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, Re-engineering the Chess Classics, which is full of fantastic engine finds in all sorts of great positions, not just tactical, mainly not tactical actually, but lots of strategical ones, and some amazing endgame finds where, some sort of classic endgames where you sort of thought, oh, these are grinds, and white was always winning. Well, the engines find all sorts of amazing ideas in that. Really, really enjoyed that. So do take a look at that one, and otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and keep your eyes peeled, plenty more videos planned. Thanks for watching.